Yo, welcome to my channel. I'm Frenchie and I'm finally finding it in myself to actually record the video for once. So, hey. Lately I've seen so many YouTube artists bringing back this ancient challenge. So I decided to try it out too. And boy, was it fun. So much fun. I really want to do it over and 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 over again. Even though I just decided to kind of do some basic busts of my Sona, because I'm busy with uni and this is supposed to be fun. I would like to have some fun, just kind of drawing myself in different art styles. Procrastinating on the illustration history by doing basic busts. Which is still a good way to kind of study a couple of artists. I mainly chose artists that have had a strong impression on either my life or my art style. And some of them you can still see to this day into my art style. And this video is pretty much just an excuse to draw about some artists that I really like. In the background, you should be seeing my art style right now as reference. The character is my Sona, which is pretty much just myself, but prettier, fluffier, and with cat ears. I'm not entirely sure if I started drawing myself with cat ears because of the autism or because Ichigo was the first character I ever kinda kinned. But it's pretty much just a quirky characteristic that my Sona has now and has had since I was in middle school. I chose my more cartoony illustration-y style. As many other artists, I'm a bit blind to my own art style and I'm still in a very heavy exploration phase of my life. So I pretty much have multiple art styles I will often use for different projects. For this stuff, but also for most of my stuff, I will usually use the line art color for blacks or very dark areas and use a more scratchy type of line art that doesn't fully cover everything for the black areas. And then cover it with the line art with white for where blacks will intersecate. I will also do highlights before doing the colors because it kind of gives me an idea of where the light is and I just kind of like it that way. After doing the highlights, I will do the colors, choose more saturated, vibrant colors, but not so vibrant that will get extremely saturated later on when I use multiply over and over again. And I will do my shading on top of the highlights and line art because I feel it gives everything more cohesion. I use a G-pen-like brush for the line art, a flat triangular brush for the flats, and a pencil-like heavily textured brush for the color variation in the flats and also for the shading, with a lot of airbrush sprinkled in. My art is heavily inspired by animation and comics alike. I am a bit blind to its distinctive feature, but I've been told it is pretty unique. So I hope you like it. Next we have the creator of my first fandom experience, Kazue Kato, aka the mangaka behind Blue Exorcist. I was strongly obsessed with it back in middle school, but after the ripe old age of 28, nowadays, I have zero idea of if it is even running, or if she started a new series. I would like to catch up with it someday though. Maybe when I have some money to spend on manga or anything. Her art style was deceptively hard, and I'm 100% I did not do it justice. She's so talented, and I love her art deeply. I just am afraid I might have chosen too simple of a character. Many of her female characters in her more complicated illustrations, and especially the colored one, will have a lot of patterns and texture to their dresses, which can really be recreated with a simple t-shirt with no graphic. I couldn't find good carrier references, so I gave myself carrier headband and human ears. I have done it to at least other 3 styles. It just made more sense. I really struggled with the phrase proportions. Her heads are somewhat boxy, and now that I think about it, I kind of regret trying to draw myself as a pretty character, because when she draws characters that are ugly or have ugly features, suddenly her style gets more lifelike and a little bit more realistic and kind of a little bit more interesting. Where for mostly girls, especially the pretty ones, it gets more stereotypically anime. It's kind of hard to explain. For the coloring, I tried to follow some illustrations that seemed to be colored in Clip Studio Paint, which followed a fairly commonly used shading technique in Japan. So I kind of went a bit stereotypical there too. And I don't know. I felt like I really didn't do justice to her stuff, but we can't do everything perfectly. Even though I'm a bit sad about it because I really, really, really love her art. I don't know. I can't really do everything 50 times. Like the one that you see, I think is already like my third attempt at her style. Actually, if you think I should do a proper style analysis, let me know. And maybe I will do an actual style study of hers. Anyway, here is the final piece. Next. Angela Vianello. Angela Vianello is the reason I got into animation. Back in the day, she made the series of shorts called White the Anime. It was fully drawn in Photoshop. She at some point started doing tutorials about how she would make it. And that was how it kind of clicked in my 13-year-old brain that I too could animate. I too could get a totally legit version of Photoshop and do digital art. I too could be like my idol. I don't know how known she is outside of Italy. Probably not very much, since she admittedly does not speak English. And even here, she kind of fell off after getting into drama for getting into spiritual stuff, which was kind of weird now thinking back on it, because like there is way weirder shit to get into. Though I guess it was kind of weird how her guru was also her boyfriend, but it's not really for me to say. Also, it was years ago and she seemed to be doing fine nowadays. So, likely just people overreacting over stuff. She's an adult and she seems to be happy, so. But likely some of y'all have seen some of her anime fairy tale illustrations from like back in 2012 or something. Those were fairly popular. Her style has more realistic proportion and rendering, except maybe for the alienishly big eyes, likely for expressiveness. And she will often go back and forth between her more anime simplified stuff and her more semi-realistic ultra rendered stuff. She can do hyper realism very well too though. Her colors are pretty normal for the most part, at least until you get to the rendering, and suddenly you are in an underwater spaceship. She's especially good with dramatic lighting, and she will often choose these greenish blue teal lights that really makes it look like you're in some sci-fi spaceship or underwater. She also really, really, really loves to make everything glossy and wet. Kind of forgot to do the wet part, but here is my attempt. I think I did pretty well. I already saw her videos explaining how she does her lighting a couple of times and totally did not start to do that too. Next, Minna Sundberg is the creator of Stand Still, Stay Silent. And anyone who knew me back in high school knows how totally normal I was about her webcomic. This time was between the easiest to recreate, mainly because of the sheer amount of time I spent learning it back in high school. So much so, I can't do normal balloons in comics anymore, because instead Still Stay Silent, they are square. And I started recreating that, and eventually just started looking weird whenever I would try and do regular round balloons. So now I draw square balloons. I kind of stopped following her as obsessively around the time she converted to Christianity, which was around the time she also kind of finished Stand Still, Stay Silent, and I was incredibly busy with university at the time. With my bachelor, right now I'm working on my master's. And after that, I kind of didn't hyperfixate on anything for quite a while, for whatever reason. Her style is very angular and heavy on watercolory textures. I pretty much just reverted to my art style back in 2018, but make it good. She does noses that are very angular, but also the actual shape of a nose with like a weird box thingy around where the highlight should be. And I swear I low-key have to stop myself from emulating that to this day. She will often draw hair that almost behaves like fabric, which it always looked to me like they were greasy somehow. It kind of works for the comic, and I'm pretty sure it is intentional because I swear in her newer illustrations where they are not going around the wilderness, and in her newer comic about animals going places, everything is incredibly filthy. So I'm pretty sure it's intentional. So I tried to recreate it in this drawing. Anyway, here is the final result. Let's go to the next. I actually don't have much of an emotional bond towards Leo Mully. I'm actually kind of unsure why exactly I chose his style to do next. Let's say just because it looked fun to try and study. I will admit I really only watched the Scott Pilgrim movie. I kinda still have to watch the anime. I do, though, own a copy of Seconds, which I read ages ago and I should probably reread now that I'm older. Though whenever I try to do it again, it high-key makes me incredibly depressed. His style is very cartoony and round, at least in Scott Pilgrim and Seconds. And in her more newer stuff, the shapes are more anime-ish, but still fairly cartoony. I did go for the older style though, which was fairly simple to recreate. I gave myself a cat ear hairband again, because I couldn't find a good reference of cats in his comics. I only could find like a black and orange comic, which looked way too old to use for this. So I just kind of gave myself a hairband. I also used Ramona Flower as reference for my hair. Back in my early 20s, I actually had a phase where I changed the shade of purple in my hair almost every month. Mainly because I just couldn't recreate the same shade each time. And it would wash out every time I washed my hair, so to some once one of my university teachers commented on why the fuck did I have a different hair color every week. It's just that the color was washing out and I would redo the color slightly different each month. It never got too far from purple. I used to own blue, red, pink, and purple, and I would just kind of mix them in slightly different ways. Once I decided to make my hair try to go from red to blue because I wanted to look like one of my characters, and another time I guess just did straight up blue, but it didn't look right. I kind of miss it. I should bring back those self-care afternoons once a month. You know, as self-care. Anyway, here is the result. Do you think I got it? Next. My absolutely favorite girl failure, Kabi Nagata. Kabi Nagata? Kabi Nagata. I got lured in by the promise of sapphic love in her debut book, My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness, which ended up not being a sapphic love story, just this highly likely neurodivergent Japanese woman being incredibly fucking lonely in Tokyo. So I really need to find her latest books now because it is fairly entertaining to see how much of a girl failure she is. I swear it is endearing. Anyway, we are here to explore her art style. Her art is very simple, with just some monochromatic accents for colors, exaggerated expressions, and a general weird sense of anxiety going through the whole thing. I was expecting it to be about as complicated for me as Kazue Kato's style, because anime styles seem to be more complicated for me to imitate, and highly simplified styles are actually deceptively hard to copy. But in this case, it wasn't. It was actually incredibly easy. Anyway, here is the result, guys. Next. Loputyn is such aesthetic. I actually used her oracle cards my friends got me last year for my birthday as reference. Any of y'all who look at references on Pinterest likely has seen her illustrations already. The watercolor effects and pencils are absolutely beautiful, and her shape language makes everything incredibly pretty. Everything seems very meaningful and so aesthetically pleasing. Hopefully, I did manage to find some art to show of hers, because most of her styles tend to entail naked ladies, which we know daily YouTube does not particularly enjoy. So hopefully I've managed to find something. I give myself more wolf-like ears because there are many in her works, more than cats, or at least cats that I could find. I did not find any, by the way. Colors are fairly neutral and a little bit pastel, way more muted and pastel than what I would usually choose. Her art kind of reminds me of some shoujo artist, but I can't really put my finger on it exactly. The people she draws also always have a fairly penetrative, thinking stare. I hope I managed to achieve it. Let me know if you think I should actually do a proper style study of hers, because that would actually be fairly interesting. Next. Pastaacolazione is an incredible surrealistically psychedelic comic artist I can't really recommend to y'all if you're either minors or in any way squeamish. I first found out about him here in Rome at an independent artist convention sort of thing, and I immediately fell in love with his crazy sci-fi paintings. They really remind me of that time in the 70s. Sci-fi was strongly inspired by dark fantasy that eventually got us stuff like the Dark Crystals in the 80s. Also, his backgrounds strongly remind me of Moebius. It just scratches that part of my brain that wants, like, sci-fi Dark Souls. That was just... That was kind of a realization right now. Damn, I just found out why I actually like his stuff, lol. With this, I tried to recreate his art in his more recent comics. Everything is gritty, dirty, slimy. I noticed he does the line art with watercolors, or at the very least, watered down ink. And he does shadows using black, likely to make everything look dirtier. Which is definitely an intentional choice because his more colorful illustrations are incredibly colorful. I wish I was courageous enough to do something more psychedelic to kind of recreate that type of stuff, but I was way too tired, so this is about it. Next, Andy Stevenson. I knew about Nimona, but I didn't read it until the movie was out for like a year. I'm way more familiar with She-Ra, Princesses of Power, the animated series they directed. I am still low-key pissed by the fact that short-haired Catra literally looks like me at the time it came out. And as reference for copying their style, I used the doodles of Catra and Adora they did right after the end of the series. They don't really draw eyes, they just do dots. And the proportions are very cartoony, which are definitely great for animation. I didn't have any issues recreating the style, and I'm actually rather proud of the results. Hope you like it too. Next, I found Vespertilius's channel, I think last year, last summer, before I knew I had mono. Right. She's a comic artist and has a YouTube channel where she does various art tutorials and vlogs. Watching her stuff made me want to learn to do hatching, which got me to the scratchy blacks I do now. Though I don't know if I have the patience for or the wrist to do it properly. She mainly posts black and white illustrations, so I kind of took some liberty with the colors. I also tried my best to recreating her traditional art digitally, but so I have with Pastaacolazione, so details. Her style is more elongated in proportion to mine. She doesn't really draw noses. The eyes also with her are just dots. Or at least she doesn't really draw noses for her Vespertiliu and Witch character, which are the ones that I used as reference to draw my character in her style. Other characters do have noses. Anyway, I think it turned out pretty well. Let me know if you want me to do a style analysis about her too, because again, that would be fairly fun. Next, Vivinose is a Korean animator. Most of y'all likely know already. If you don't, she does sapphic horror animation in an adorable anime art style. Also, Alien Sage. Her style was incredibly hard for me to replicate, and even at that point, I did not do a good job. Maybe the Alien Stage style would have been easier, but I didn't really watch it back when I tried to create it, and for some reason I decided to watch it right before recording this. I did a couple of attempts. One I deleted the recording of, another I did the line art, went to sleep, and the next day hated it so much I restarted. Then we get to the final attempt, where I feel like I did get the proportions right, completely failed that hand. Oh my god, it looks so bad with the anime art style. I don't know what I had in mind there, and why did I not fix it? But it's too late now. Anyway, let me know if you think I should do a proper study of this one too. And finally, we have Paolo Barbieri, the king of art brushing. Maybe you don't know him by name, but I would be fairly surprised if you have never seen any of his illustrations. At the very least, the Italians in the audience know for sure some of his fantasy book covers. His works are realistic fantasy illustrations. It isn't hard to copy per se, it just takes ages. Because unless you're used and knowledgeable about rendering realistically, it takes ages. And even when you know how to render it in a faster way, it still takes a while. I've done my best, but an issue of mine is that I don't have the patience for super mega hyper realistic stuff. Animation, yes. Realism, not so much. Though someday I should check if he does master classes. Just because I'm not good doesn't mean that I shouldn't at least know the theory. Also, fun fact. Back in my second year of my bachelor's, they organized an art critique with him, and he said he liked the character design I brought, which made me like the guy a lot more because I am biased like that. Hopefully the speed paint wasn't too long. The recording was like 4 hours long, if not even more. I had to divide it in two. But here is the final result. Hope it sort of looks like it. I tried my best, I swear. I tried my best, please. And so, yeah, this was a hell of a lot of fun to do. I'm already working on another batch of styles because it was so much fun. So follow me on my socials in the description to see what I'm doing. Join my Discord to actually get updates. Like, subscribe, and if you have something to say, I beg you let me know in the comments. I'm Francie. Here is some videos you might like, and goodbye.